a gilded cage of secrets. The biting wind whipped across the desolate plains of rural Montana, mirroring the chill that had settled in Alara's heart. At 22, she felt more weathered than the abandoned barns dotting the landscape, her spirit worn thin by a life of relentless hardship. Her name, Alara, meaning bright one, felt like a cruel joke in the face of her bleak reality. She'd grown up in a trailer park on the outskirts of Billings, a place where dreams went to die and hope was a luxury few could afford. Her mother, a woman whose beauty had faded under the weight of poverty and despair, worked double shifts at the local diner, her meager earnings barely enough to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Alara had inherited her mother's striking features, a cascade of raven hair, piercing blue eyes, and a delicate bone structure that hinted at a beauty that had never been nurtured. But her beauty was a liability in their world, attracting unwanted attention and making her a target for the crude advances of the local boys. Alara's life had been a relentless struggle. She'd learned to be resourceful and resilient, working odd jobs since she was old enough to hold a broom, scrubbing toilets, waitressing at the same diner as her mother, anything to contribute to the family's survival. Education was a distant dream, a luxury they couldn't afford. She'd managed to graduate high school, a feat that felt monumental in their circumstances. But college was out of the question. She knew her future was mapped out for her, a life of drudgery, poverty, and the constant fear of slipping further into the abyss of desperation. Then, he appeared, Cyrus Blackwood, a name that resonated with wealth and power, a stark contrast to the names Alara had grown up with. He was old, undeniably so, 71 years old, with silver hair that framed a face etched with the lines of time and experience. He moved with a slight stiffness, his hands gnarled and spotted with age, but his eyes, a piercing shade of gray, held an intensity that belied his years. He was a figure from another world, a world of privilege and refinement that Alara had only glimpsed in movies and magazines. Cyrus Blackwood was a legend in Montana, a self-made man who had built an empire from nothing, his name synonymous with success and innovation. He owned vast tracts of land, sprawling ranches that stretched as far as the eye could see, and his influence permeated every corner of the state. He was a recluse, rarely seen in public, his life shrouded in mystery and speculation. Rumors swirled around him, whispers of his ruthless business dealings, his eccentric lifestyle, and the tragic death of his wife decades ago. Alara met him by chance. She was working a temporary job at a local bookstore, shelving books. When he walked in, he was dressed impeccably, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the casual attire of the other patrons. He browsed the shelves, his eyes scanning the titles with an air of quiet contemplation. Alara, drawn to his presence, found herself watching him, fascinated by his aura of power and mystery. He noticed her watching him, and his gray eyes met hers. Alara felt a jolt, a strange flutter in her chest. He smiled, a surprisingly warm smile that softened the harsh lines of his face. He asked her for help finding a particular book, and she, flustered and tongue-tied, led him to the section he was looking for. They talked for a few minutes. About the book, about the author, about life in general. Alara was surprised by his gentle demeanor, his genuine interest in her thoughts and opinions. He treated her with respect, a courtesy she wasn't accustomed to receiving from men. He returned to the bookstore several times over the next few weeks, always seeking her out, engaging her in conversation. He learned about her life, her struggles, her dreams. He listened attentively, his eyes filled with understanding and compassion. He never pried, never made her feel like a charity case. He simply offered her his friendship, a lifeline in her desolate existence. Then, one day, he proposed. Alara was stunned. She couldn't believe her ears. Cyrus Blackwood, the most powerful man in Montana, was asking her, a poor, uneducated girl from the trailer park, to marry him. It seemed like a dream, a fantasy ripped from the pages of a fairy tale. But it was real. He was serious. She hesitated. The age difference was staggering. 50 years separated them, a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. She thought of her mother, her weary face, her calloused hands. She thought of her own bleak future, the endless cycle of poverty and hardship that awaited her if she stayed where she was. Cyrus saw her hesitation. He took her hand in his. his touch surprisingly gentle. He told her about his life, his loneliness, his desire for companionship. He didn't promise her riches or luxury. He simply offered her his heart, his respect, and a chance at a different life. Alara looked into his eyes, those piercing gray eyes that held a lifetime of stories. She saw not just an old man, but a man who was offering her a way out, a chance to escape the crushing weight of her circumstances. She saw a glimmer of hope, a possibility for a future she had never dared to dream of. And she said yes. The wedding was a small, private affair, held at Cyrus's sprawling ranch, a magnificent estate nestled in the foothills of the mountains. Alara felt like a character in a movie, a Cinderella plucked from obscurity and thrust into a world of opulence and grandeur. She wore a simple white dress, her raven hair cascading down her back, her blue eyes sparkling with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Cyrus stood beside her, his aged face radiating a quiet happiness. After the ceremony, they retreated to Cyrus's private wing of the ranch, a sprawling suite of rooms decorated with antique furniture and priceless works of art. Alara felt overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the place, the vastness of the rooms, the silence that hung in the air. It was a world away from the cramped trailer she had grown up in. Their first night together was awkward, to say the least. Alara was a virgin, her experience with men limited to the crude advances of the local boys. Cyrus was gentle and respectful, his touch hesitant and tender. He didn't pressure her, didn't demand anything from her. He simply held her in his arms, his body frail and thin, and whispered stories of his life, his travels, his dreams. Alara listened, mesmerized by his tales, transported to far-off lands and exotic places. She felt a strange connection to him, a sense of understanding that transcended their age difference. He was not just her husband, but her friend, her confidant, her guide to this new world she had entered. In the days and weeks that followed, Alara began to settle into her new life. She explored the vast ranch, riding horses through the rolling hills, hiking in the mountains, discovering hidden waterfalls and breathtaking vistas. She learned about Cyrus's business empire, his vast holdings, his philanthropic endeavors. She met his staff, the loyal employees who had been with him for decades, and they welcomed her with open arms. Cyrus treated her with kindness and respect, showering her with affection and attention. He taught her about art, music, literature, expanding her horizons in ways she had never imagined. He encouraged her to pursue her education, hiring a tutor to help her prepare for college. He wanted her to have the opportunities that he had never had. Alara thrived in this new environment. She blossomed, her beauty radiating from within, her spirit finally free from the constraints of poverty and hardship. She felt loved, cherished, and protected. She began to believe that she had found her happily ever after. But beneath the surface of this idyllic existence, a sense of unease began to creep in. Alara noticed that Cyrus was often secretive, disappearing for hours at a time, returning with a look of exhaustion and worry on his face. He refused to talk about his business dealings, dismissing her questions with a wave of his hand. She sensed that he was hiding something from her, something big, something that was causing him great stress. One night, Alara overheard a phone conversation between Cyrus and a man she didn't recognize. He was speaking in hushed tones, his voice filled with anger and desperation. He mentioned a name, Isabella, and something about a deal gone wrong. Alara's curiosity was piqued. Who was Isabella, and what deal had gone wrong? She tried to ask Cyrus about it, but he brushed her off, telling her it was nothing to worry about. But Alara couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. She felt like she was living in a gilded cage, surrounded by luxury and comfort, but trapped in a web of secrets and lies. Driven by her. Part 2. Unraveling the threads. Alara's unease grew with each passing day. The idyllic facade of her marriage began to crumble, revealing the cracks beneath. Cyrus's secretive behavior intensified, his once warm and open demeanor replaced by a guarded silence. He would often disappear for days, claiming he was on business trips. But Alara suspected he was lying. She noticed the lines on his face deepening, the sparkle in his gray eyes dimming. He seemed burdened, haunted by something she couldn't comprehend, driven by a need to understand the secrets that shrouded her husband and her new life. Alara began her own investigation. She started subtly, asking the ranch staff about Cyrus's past, his business dealings, his relationship with Isabella. They were hesitant to speak, their loyalty to Cyrus unwavering. But Alara's genuine kindness and gentle persistence eventually yielded some information. She learned that Isabella was Cyrus's deceased wife, who had died tragically decades ago. The circumstances surrounding her death were shrouded in mystery, some whispering of an accident, others hinting at something more sinister. Alara also discovered that Cyrus's business empire was not as straightforward as she had initially believed. He was involved in complex deals, some of which were rumored to be ethically questionable. She heard whispers of powerful enemies, of shady partnerships, of a past that Cyrus was desperately trying to keep hidden. Alara's curiosity intensified. She delved deeper, spending hours in the ranch's vast library, researching Cyrus's business history, poring over old newspaper articles, trying to piece together the puzzle of his past. She discovered that Cyrus had started his empire from humble beginnings, his rise to power marked by both brilliance and ruthlessness. He had a reputation for being a shrewd businessman, a man who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. The more Alara learned, the more confused she became. She loved Cyrus. She truly did. He had shown her a kindness and compassion she had never experienced before. But she was also beginning to see a darker side to him, a side he had kept hidden from her. She struggled to reconcile the man she knew with the man his past revealed. One day, while exploring the attic of the ranch, Alara stumbled upon a locked trunk. Curiosity gnawed at her. She felt a strong intuition that the trunk held the answers she was searching for. After several attempts, she managed to pick the lock. Inside, she found a collection of old photographs, letters, and documents. As she sifted through the contents, a picture fell out. It was a photograph of a young woman, her face strikingly beautiful, her eyes filled with a vibrant energy. Alara recognized her instantly. It was Isabella. The photograph was taken years ago, but Isabella's beauty was timeless. Alara felt a pang of jealousy, a strange sense of competition with a woman who was no longer alive. She continued searching through the trunk, her heart pounding with anticipation. She found a stack of letters, tied together with a faded ribbon. They were love letters, written by Cyrus to Isabella, filled with passion and devotion. Alara's heart ached as she read them, realizing the depth of Cyrus's love for his deceased wife. She also found a document, a legal contract, detailing a business deal between Cyrus and a man named Victor Rossi. The contract was complex, filled with legal jargon, but Alara recognized a few key phrases: illegal activities, money laundering, international smuggling. Her blood ran cold. She realized that Cyrus's business dealings were not just ethically questionable, they were illegal. The document also mentioned a location, a small island in the Caribbean, Isla Paradiso. Alara felt a jolt of recognition. She had seen this name before. In one of the old newspaper articles she had read, it was connected to a series of unsolved crimes, a string of disappearances and suspicious deaths. Alara's mind raced. She felt like she was unraveling a dangerous conspiracy, a web of lies and deceit that reached far beyond the walls of the ranch. She realized that her life was in danger. Cyrus's secrets were not just his own. They were connected to powerful and dangerous people. She knew she had to confront Cyrus, but she was afraid. She didn't know how he would react to her discoveries. Would he confess? Would he try to silence her? She didn't know who to trust. Alara decided to confide in someone she trusted. The ranch's longtime housekeeper, Mrs. Peterson. Mrs. Peterson had been with Cyrus for decades. She knew him better than anyone. Alara hoped she could help her understand the truth. She told Mrs. Peterson everything she had discovered, showing her the photograph of Isabella, the love letters, the legal contract. Mrs. Peterson listened intently, her face growing pale with each revelation. When Alara finished, Mrs. Peterson remained silent for a long moment, her eyes filled with sadness and regret. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. She confirmed Alara's suspicions. She told her about Cyrus's past, his connection to Victor Rossi, his involvement in illegal activities. She revealed the truth about Isabella's death. It wasn't an accident, she said. Isabella had discovered Cyrus's illegal dealings and threatened to expose him. He had silenced her, making it look like an accident. Alara was horrified. She couldn't believe the man she loved was capable of such a heinous act. She felt betrayed, shattered. Mrs. Peterson told her that Cyrus was a dangerous man, a man who would stop at nothing to protect his secrets. She advised Alara to leave the ranch, to disappear, to start a new life somewhere far away. But Alara refused. She loved Cyrus. Despite everything, she couldn't just run away. She needed to understand why he had done what he had done. She needed to confront him, to make him face the consequences of his actions. Alara knew she was taking a risk, a huge risk, but she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. She decided to confront Cyrus that night. She waited until he returned from his latest business trip, her heart pounding with fear and anticipation. When he finally arrived, he looked exhausted, his face etched with worry. He greeted her with a tired smile, but Alara could see the darkness in his eyes. She took a deep breath and told him everything she knew. She showed him the photograph of Isabella, the love letters, the legal contract. Cyrus's face paled. He remained silent for a long moment, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and anger. Then, he began to speak, his voice low and trembling. He confessed everything. He told her about his past, his connection to Victor Rossi, his involvement in illegal activities. He admitted to killing Isabella. Alara listened in stunned silence, her heart breaking with each word. She couldn't believe the man she loved was a murderer. Cyrus explained that he had done it all for power, for money, for the illusion of control. He had convinced himself that it was necessary, that he was protecting his empire, his legacy. He begged Alara for forgiveness, but she couldn't give it to him. She felt a profound sense of betrayal, a deep wound that would never heal. She told him that she could never be with him again. Cyrus didn't argue. He knew she was right. He had lost her trust, her love, forever. He told her that he understood, that he deserved whatever punishment awaited him. Alara left him that night, her heart heavy with sadness and disillusionment. She knew she could never return to the ranch, to the life she had built with Cyrus. She had to start over, to rebuild her life from the ashes of her shattered dreams. She went to the police and told them everything she knew. She gave them the legal contract, the information about Isla Paradiso, the details of Isabella's death. The police launched an investigation, and Cyrus was arrested. Alara testified against him in court, her voice trembling but firm. She told the truth about his crimes, his lies, his betrayal. Cyrus was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Alara's life was forever changed. She had lost her husband, her home, her sense of security, but she had also gained something. She had found her strength, her courage, her voice. She had faced her fears and emerged stronger, more resilient than ever before. She decided to use her experience to help others, to fight against injustice, to give a voice to the voiceless. She went back to school, finished her education, and became a lawyer, specializing in cases of domestic violence and abuse. She never forgot Cyrus, the man she had loved, the man who had betrayed her. His memory served as a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect lives. But she refused to let his actions define her. She chose to focus on the light, on the hope for a better future. Alara's story is a story of resilience, of courage, of the power of truth. It's a story about a young woman who was thrust into a world. Part 3. Rebirth and Reckoning. Alara's life after Cyrus was a journey of healing and self-discovery. The initial shock and pain gradually subsided, replaced by a quiet strength and a fierce determination to rebuild her life on her own terms. She threw herself into her studies, her passion for law fueled by her own experience with injustice. The long hours and demanding coursework were a welcome distraction, a way to channel her energy and focus on something positive. She excelled in her classes, her sharp intellect and unwavering dedication earning her the respect of her professors and peers. Despite the emotional turmoil she had endured, Alara refused to become a victim. She embraced her newfound independence, learning to rely on herself and trust her instincts. She moved out of the opulent mansion, choosing a modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood. The stark contrast between her previous life of luxury and her current simplicity was a constant reminder of the deceptive nature of appearances. She learned to appreciate the small things, the simple joys of life that she had taken for granted before. She also began to confront the emotional scars left by her relationship with Cyrus. She sought therapy, working through the complex emotions of love, betrayal, and anger. It was a long and arduous process. But Alara was committed to healing, to shedding the weight of her past and moving forward with a clear and open heart. She learned to forgive herself for being naive, for trusting too easily, for loving a man who had deceived her. She realized that she was not to blame for Cyrus's actions, that she was a victim of his choices, not a participant in them. As she progressed through law school, Alara found herself drawn to cases involving domestic violence and abuse. She felt a deep empathy for the victims, understanding their fear, their helplessness, their struggle to break free from their abusers. She knew she could make a difference, that she could use her legal skills to protect those who were vulnerable, to give them a voice in a system that often failed them. Her personal experience gave her a unique perspective, an understanding that went beyond the legal arguments and the courtroom procedures. She could connect with her clients on a personal level, offering them not just legal representation, but also emotional support and understanding. She became a fierce advocate for her clients, fighting tirelessly for their rights, determined to bring their abusers to justice. Alara's dedication and compassion quickly earned her a reputation as a skilled and effective lawyer. She won several high-profile cases, bringing much-needed attention to the issue of domestic violence and inspiring other victims to come forward. She became a role model for many, a symbol of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity. Despite her professional success, Alara remained grounded and humble. She never forgot her roots, her struggles, the trailer park where she had grown up. She often volunteered her time at local shelters and community centers, offering free legal advice to those who couldn't afford it. She wanted to give back to the community that had supported her, to make a difference in the lives of others who were facing similar challenges. As the years passed, Alara's life began to flourish. She built strong friendships with other women who had survived similar experiences, creating a network of support and understanding. She learned to trust again, to open her heart to the possibility of love. She met a man, a kind and gentle soul, who saw her for who she was, who appreciated her strength and her compassion. He loved her for her past, not in spite of it. Their relationship was built on honesty, respect, and mutual understanding. He admired her work, her dedication to helping others, her unwavering commitment to justice. He supported her dreams, her ambitions, her desire to make a difference in the world. He never tried to control her, never tried to diminish her strength. He loved her fiercely and unconditionally. Alara found happiness with him, a deep and lasting love that was built on a foundation of trust and respect. They married, a small and intimate ceremony surrounded by their closest friends and family. Alara finally felt at peace. Her heart healed, her spirit renewed. She never forgot Cyrus, but she no longer harbored any anger or resentment towards him. She understood that he was a broken man, a victim of his own choices. She forgave him, not for his sake, but for her own. Holding on to anger and resentment only poisoned her own soul, preventing her from moving forward with her life. Alara's journey was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to overcome even the most devastating experiences. She had transformed her pain into purpose, her suffering into strength. She had emerged from the ashes of her past, a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate woman. Her life was a story of hope, a beacon of light for others who were struggling to find their way. She had proven that it was possible to overcome adversity, to find love and happiness after heartbreak, to create a meaningful life filled with purpose and passion. Alara's story continued to inspire others. Long after she had found her own peace and happiness, her legacy lived on through the lives she had touched, the people she had helped, the difference she had made in the world. She had shown that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail, that even after the most devastating betrayal, love can bloom again, and that even after a life shattered by secrets, a new life, filled with truth and purpose, can be built. And that, perhaps, was the most shocking secret of all, the power of the human spirit to rise, to rebuild, and to ultimately triumph. Her life was a testament to the enduring strength of the human heart, its capacity for forgiveness, its resilience in the face of adversity, and its unwavering ability to find love and happiness, even after the most shocking of secrets are revealed. And in the end, that was the most beautiful secret of all.